thanks for having me. I'm Ron Durbin. I'm the Forestry Division Chief for LA County Fire Department. We're going to talk a little bit about defensible space and all the programmed requirements that we have inside the county. So our mission is to protect life, property, and environment. Our key objectives for this program, of course, is to ensure structure survival and firefighter safety. One of the things inside forestry, when we talk about life, property, environment, is what forestry does. And so forestry is this environmental component for the department, but we have three components that are part of our mission. Fire prevention, again, we are the environmental experts. That's biological and cultural resources that we are responsible for protecting inside the department. And of course, logistics, right? So all these major events that we go out on, earthquakes, wildfire, second, third alarm structure fire. That's what forestry does inside the department. So what I'm going to do today is go over the frequently asked questions that have come to us as we have pushed out the annual notice. We've gotten a lot of questions about what this annual notice means. And so that's what I'm going to cover. It's primarily focused on the Defensible Space Program. So first question, why did I receive the annual notice? The key is, if you have the notice, your structure is inside a very high fire hazard severity zone or high fire hazard severity zone. The California Public Resources Code 4291 requires that all structure owners inside a fire hazard severity zone maintain defensible space. That's also consistent with the LA County Fire Department brush clearance requirement, Section 325 inside our fire code. So the difference between the two, between 4291 and 325, is that the state only requires up to 100 feet and LA County Fire Code can go up to 200 feet if conditions warrant. So I want to talk a little bit about fire hazard severity zones in a couple different slides. The state right now, they are mandated to update the fire hazard severity zones. They do it, they're supposed to do it every 5 years. It's been 16 now since the last one. It was 2007 since the last time they did it. They have pushed out the state responsibility area maps. They've had a public hearing that closed on April 4th of this year. They received 1,300 comments back after the public hearing. They're going through those comments right now. It's going to take them a while to resolve and answer all of those comments. When they do, they will finalize the maps for the SRA and they'll produce them for everybody again. The LRA maps, which is next for all the incorporated areas, all of our cities, those will come after the SRA maps are finalized. And we expect to see that. We were hoping to see that at the end of this year. I'm starting to think it's going to come next year when the LRA gets pushed out. And they'll do the same thing. We'll have public hearings again, there'll be a comment period, and then they'll finalize the maps. What's different, though, between what's happening with LRA, it's different than what you've seen currently, right? The LRA maps currently only show the very high fire hazard severity zone. So with SB 63, they're required now to show all of the zones, just like you see in the SRA, right? So in the LRA, now you're going to see the moderate, the high, and the very high. So let's go to the next slide. So why is this the first time I received the notice? So the department has instituted a new GIS program that allows us, it's a collector program that we've worked with CAL FIRE on. It allows us to more accurately identify parcels. So using criteria, we are able to look at single-family residential inside a fire hazard severity zone, right? Right now, that's all we're looking at is single-family residential because the program is new and our program has grown significantly as we've added parcels. And one of the reasons why we've gone to this, there's actually a couple. The state required that we used a common reporting program. That's collective for us. So now we're on the state system. We don't have to report, it's automatically reported to the state now. The other thing we found out is after the Woolsey fire, we found that our normal process of identifying parcels through station personnel, just visually, we were missing parcels. And so now with this criteria, just using the criteria, it's increased the number of inspections. So some of our folks are now receiving these notices for the very first time. Okay, so As I said, we're focused on single-family resident right now. We are going to be expanding it because the fire code talks about residential primarily. So we'll get into condominiums and apartments and duplexes and that kind of stuff in the following seasons as this program continues to grow. So if you live in one of those residential structures, multifamily, you can expect to see something down the road. So what are the fire hazard severity zone and who determines them? So the zones are determined by CAL FIRE. They are mandated by Public Resources Code 4201 to 4204. So they come up with the codes and we accept the codes after it goes through that process. So what do they look for? It's several factors that determines what brings something into the zone. So vegetation, topography, worst case weather, fire history, predicted flame lengths, burn probabilities, ember cast. All of those things are incorporated into what helps them determine what a fire hazard severity zone is. And I just want to remind you again, it's supposed to be done every 5 years, and it's been late, and it takes a lot. That's why the state is so slow. First part is they needed funding to complete this process. It's an expensive process to update the zones. And now with SB 63, I don't know if it's going to take them longer. It's the same format for producing the maps for LRA and SRA, but now it's going to take certainly us as we present to cities the changes to LRA maps. It's going to take a while longer to do that, and we expect to have probably more pushback related to those zones because that's where most of the changes are going to show up. So where does the fire department get authority to conduct the defensible space inspections? Again, it comes out of 4291. It's very specific, so if you're in the zone, the code says, and I'll read it verbatim for you to a point. So it says, a person who owns, leases, controls, operates, or maintains a building or structure in, upon, or adjoining a mountainous area, forest-covered lands, shrub-covered lands, grass-covered lands, or land that is covered with flammable vegetation, shall at all times do all of the following. And then the specifics of that code follow. And I'm not going to go through the specifics because they'll show up a little bit later in the presentation. So for folks, they're asking, so when am I going to get inspected and do I need to be home? So we basically start, because the county is a big area, we start in the desert, that's typically April 1st. We move to inland areas, everything outside the coast. Inland areas start May 1st, and then coastal areas, which is out here, Battalion 5, all on the coast in Malibu, and then in the Palos Verdes Peninsula, that's June 1st. And so the area here has just started receiving their inspections. So that should be happening soon. Typically, when there's something where the station sees it's non-compliant, they'll come knock on the door first, they'll try to make an introduction. If they don't, they're going to go do their inspection. They won't go through locked gates. If they need to, they'll try to see it from another parcel that's publicly available to them. And if they can't, then we have to go back to get an inspection warrant. I've never had to get an inspection warrant so far. So in 25 years, never had to do it. So I don't expect that to happen. So if you needed clarity on the requirements for defensible space, you can always contact the defensible space unit now, formerly the brush clearance unit. That phone number is 626-969-2375. After your inspection, look at the inspection report if it's not compliant, and call that phone number, and then you'll be able to speak to the inspector that looked at your property. So, will you receive an inspection report if your property is in compliance? Initially, you would have. We have recently changed our program where the stations, because we have so many new parcels, the station doesn't have quite as much time. They're a little more efficient now. They'll take a photo of the property. It gets uploaded into our database. Then we will extract all those compliant properties from the database, and we're going to mail compliance letters now. So if you receive an annual notice, that'll be the same address that we mail the compliance letter to. So we should start mailing out those letters as soon as the fire chief approves that letter. I expect to start mailing those next week. So what happens if your property needs corrections? So everybody gets at least 30 days to make those corrections. And I would recommend that if you got a non-compliance notice, you right away call the phone number if you're unclear about any of those requirements. Just call the phone number on the bottom of the form. It's actually on the top of the form because we changed the form. Right? Call the phone number for the station inspector on the top. So do you need to remove trees? There was some confusion when the annual notice came out, and a lot of people started calling us, do I need to remove any trees? And most likely that answer is no. Right? All you have to do, take out the dead, limb trees up, wait for your inspection, and then we will let you know if there's anything more to do. That's just standard practice for maintaining trees. And to maintain the tree, it would be up to 6 feet or 1/3 the height of the tree. So whichever is less, right? We don't want people going beyond 6 feet. So why is there an inspection fee? This is a little different. Primarily, it's to make the program cost neutral. So we have a much larger program than we used to have. The process for approving the inspection fee, we went through a time and motion study. That took about 6 months. We brought that to the auditor controller in our financial management division. The auditor controller approved our process and approved the fee. It went to the board of supervisors and they approved the fee. But what we are able to do, and again, we've tried to resist having an inspection fee. Back in 1989, LA County Agriculture, they instituted their initial inspections. And we haven't. We've been resisting to provide that service to our constituents. We can't do that any longer. In order to make this program cost neutral and be efficient and effective at completing these inspections, we've had to institute an inspection fee for cost recovery. So it's basically a cost neutral program. The fee, the ability to recover these costs, are defined in the Health and Safety Code. That's 14902. And it's the same process that County Ag uses that we use as well. So the inspection fee is going to be phased in over 3 years. The initial fee was $50 this year, so $50 was last year, $100 this year, it'll be $151 next year. It's always a year behind when you actually see the fee. So for those parcels that got inspected last year for the $50 fee, the first time you'll see it is November of this year on your taxes. So it's always a year delayed. So how do you get billed for the inspection fee? It shows up on property taxes. It's the same assessment. Again, that's part of the Health and Safety Code, and we just follow that code in order to process that fee, and it'll show up on the annual property taxes that you see. So has there been any changes impacting requirements to defensible space? And that answer is kind of yes and no. I'm going to cover two things related to AB 3074, which is the Zone 0 5-foot ember resistant zone. I'm going to cover AB 38, which is the real estate inspection requirement. So the reason that the state is moving towards new laws governing defensible space, there's clear verified science indicating why we have structure loss and the ability to reduce structure loss associated with this first 5 feet. That's where AB 3074 came up. And then again, I'll cover AB 38 in just a second. So what is AB 3074? Again, it's that 5-foot ember resistant zone. It was approved by the governor September 29th, 2020. It was not enforceable until January 1st of 2021. That's when it actually became law. There's a caveat to it. It requires the State Board of Forestry to approve specific guidelines, and all of those guidelines have not been approved yet. So we're waiting on the Board of Forestry. We expected to have them complete this year so that would be effective next year. Well, that's not going to happen. They are continually being delayed because there's some pushback related to the requirements, and the state wanted the Office of Administrative Law to do an economic impact analysis first. There's a public hearing that's going to happen next, right? So they'll do the public hearing. There's a 45-day minimum, just like they extended the fire hazard severity zone public hearing. They added, it was like 105 days, something like that. They added, it was at least double. So we expect the same thing to happen with this, with AB 3074. There'll be, again, public hearing, comment period. They'll answer all of the comments, and then they'll finalize it, and then it will become effective. It'll become effective for new construction right away, and then existing structures will be a year after that. And at this point, we are expecting anticipating that those requirements may come in 2025 for new construction and existing structures 2026. But I will give that really big caveat. It may turn out that after they go through the process, that the state receives so much feedback that they decide to completely change AB 3074 and possibly change the law. Don't know. But the science is there. I want to make that really clear. The science is there and why that first 5 feet is so important. Okay? And I'm going to show you a quick video on what it really means. So we'll see how loud this one is. So this was done in a simulator. It's ember cast machines throwing embers at the same rate at the structure. So we have two sides of the structure here. One is non-combustible construction without any vegetation within that first 5 feet. This deck is the same as that deck. They're both combustible. This side over here has combustible construction on the siding. It's got a little bit of vegetation adjacent to it. And you can see how quickly the ember cast right next to the structure ignites what's adjacent to it. And again, there's very little fuel in this simulation. Very little fuel. And it doesn't take very much. Right? This is just a few minutes before the structure ignites. That's why this zone is so important. Right? And if we have significant vegetation, receptive fuels adjacent to the structure, that is also going to take out the structure quickly too. So the goal for the state is to eliminate this first 5 feet around the structure. That's combustible, it's ember resistant, to prevent this from happening so it looks more like what's happening over here on the right. And that, if this happens with all of our structures, the opportunity for us to defend as a fire department, welcome. The opportunity for us to defend as a fire department makes it much easier, and we can defend a wider space with fewer resources. Mm-hmm. So it's critical that even though AB 3074 is not state law that we're going to enforce at this point, it's critical that each of us look at what that means for our structures and do all we can to make sure that that first 5 feet is taken care of. Right? So the one things that we will be doing is showing examples of what it could look like. So these are really good examples of that first 5 feet. Great aesthetics, right? The fire code requires a 5-foot walk around regardless. So it has the ability for our firefighters to walk around the structure, right? The fuels are separated from the structure itself, and again, it's 5 feet from the edge of the wall, right? So here's one, right? Different paving materials, same kind of thing, right? No vegetation next to the structure is non-combustible, siding. So we're really careful about what materials we're using. This one is stucco. This all is non-combustible siding as well. Again, this is from this third photo, adjacent to the wall. It's 5 feet from the wall, not from the overhang. Right? So we've got this non-combustible area, walkway around the structure itself, some low, I don't want to say non-flammable, low fuel volume plants adjacent to that, and a little more space. So they've thought really well about what kind of defensible space is right next to the structure. Is that defensible for our department? Absolutely. Right? That's what we're looking for, so that in the end, we have our resources really attacking the fire itself to try to put the fire out. Our resources are protected, which is important for me. And in the end, the structure's standing. That's our goal. Okay, so right now, do you need to remove any plants within the first 5 feet? You don't, other than you want to look at the roof and gutters. All right, so the other thing I do want to say about AB 3074, all of those requirements that are going to come in, assuming they come in, are already in our fire code. So vines and climbing plants on a structure, we can already write those up. It's just going to be very specific when AB 3074 comes in 5-foot specific guideline. It's going to be very detailed at that point on what can and can't be there. And like I said, it's already in our fire code. So if the station personnel evaluate a structure, they can say, look, you need to take that vine off of your structure. And they can do it right now. Okay, so what is AB 38? It's the real estate inspection requirement. And so what it requires now is that real estate sellers, if your structure is in a fire hazard severity zone, you're required to disclose to the buyer that you're in the fire hazard severity zone and your property is in compliance, and if there's any home hardening components that you've added to the structure, you're supposed to disclose that to the buyer. So that's the requirement. Our inspections for defensible space are good for 6 months. So if you got your inspection for folks out here on June 1st, it'll be good until the end of the year, almost, right? December 1st. So good for 6 months. But again, it's just a disclosure that AB 38 requires. So that'll be done through your escrow process. Do these inspections impact fire insurance? Ours are specific to defensible space. So the insurance industry, and we have a member from the insurance industry here today to talk about specifics, but the insurance industry sets rates based on their requirements and their inspections. They do consider some of the same things we do, so fire hazard severity zones are obviously a component of that. We don't have any influence on what a rate might be for an insurance company, but insurance companies are supposed to take into consideration some risk mitigations when setting rates. Things like defensible space, home hardening upgrades, proximity to fire hydrants and fire stations, whether you have a fire safe council or if there's a CWPP or a community wildfire protection plan, community fire breaks, those kinds of things. If you wanted to make a phone call, you have concerns, you could either ask who we have here today, or you can call the phone number for the California Department of Insurance. That number is 800-927-4357. So specifically, we talked about requirements, and I was going to share in later. I'm going to do that now. So what are we looking for? Right? So we have 3 primary zones, zones 1, 2, and 3. Zone 0, again, is just advisories this year. So zone 0, just advisory, other than roofs and gutters. That's what they're going to look at. So zone 1, the first 30 feet, right? Lean, clean, and green zone, right? All the dead taken out, and plants and vegetation that are flammable, limbed up and spaced appropriately. And we'll go through all 3 zones. One of the first things that we want to look at here, though, is structure assessment and home hardening. And what are those components that you can look for there? So the state has, CAL FIRE has a low-cost retrofit list that you can start with. It covers things like vents, chimney outlets, covers, caulking and sealing openings to prevent ember intrusion, non-combustible siding, of course, double-pane windows, tempered glass, those are important, and roofing. And the way I just gave that list is sort of low cost to high cost, and you can evaluate what is most bang for the buck and what you need on your particular property. So a couple of examples. If we were going to evaluate the first 5 feet, this one in particular relates to junipers adjacent to the structure, and so what they did is just limb the trees up and push them back away from the structure, and that would cover that first 5 feet. So what we will look for, even though we're not specifically enforcing zone 0 related to AB 3074, they're going to look at the roof. They will look at rain gutters to make sure that all of that material is removed. Again, they can cover this right now. Vines and climbing plants over the top of the structure, that's a receptive fuel, and they can write that up right now. That will absolutely, if the state approves AB 3074, with all of their guidelines, that'll be included. Absolutely. So here's a little bit farther away from the structure. What we like to see people do is limb their trees and shrubs up, reduce the dead material, and provide some separations. And so A and B are the 4s, and C over here and D are the after. You can see they've limbed junipers up, removed some of the dead material, right, and provided some separation. That's what you would do in that first 30 feet. Zone 2, from 30 to 100 feet. Most everybody has this zone, unless you're in a smaller development type property. So in this case, right, you're going to separate fuels, remove dead, make sure, if you can, irrigate, so we have a high moisture content within the plants. So you can see, again here, that the lower limbs are removed, All the dead is taken out. This is a California pepper. Over on the right, we have some Canary Island pines and some Washingtonias. All the dead fronds are taken off the top. And these trees are laced out pretty nicely. And then the fuels are separated fairly well. So that's what we're looking for. And then zone 3 from 100 to 200 feet, if you have that space. It's this fine fuel content. This is closer than the first 100 feet, but this is a better example. This is what they removed off of this slope. And this is called a shaded fuel break, where, in my opinion, this is County Ag. This is our vendor. It's a joint program with LA County Fire as well. So we use LA County Ag as our vendor to clear properties when we need enforcement. What they've done in this case over here, again, shaded fuel break. They've lifted lollipop trees up, taken the dead out. There's a few more plants down here. They could have done that versus taking everything out. And we're always concerned about slopes and erosion control. So that's why I would rather see a larger canopy with reduced fuels underneath. So they've just limbed everything up. Right? That would make me happier, more comfortable, so I'm not worried about erosion off this slope. So if you do receive a non-compliant inspection, you'll get it either one of two ways. Either the inspector's going to hand it to you, or they'll deliver it in a door hanger. Right? So you'll get an inspection report. That's what we call a 410B. That's our form. The phone number will be up on the top. It'll have the boxes checked for any kind of violations that you might have, and it'll indicate the number of the inspection that it was, whether it was the first inspection or second inspection. And then this last box on the right will talk about whether it was compliant or not. Right? So the summary, our inspections out here, they're going to start June 1st, so the entire county has now started their inspections. You're going to start from your house and work your way out. If you do these 3 things, limb your trees up, remove dead or dying, cut your grasses down to 3 inches. That's like 90% of the work. And if there's anything else, the inspector will come by and say, hey, do this a little bit here, a little bit there, and you're done. Right? So if you do those 3 things, you're going to be in great shape. If you get a non-compliant inspection, you have 30 days to come into compliance. Call the inspector right away. And if you need additional clarity, again, I just want to emphasize, call that inspector right away. And with that, that's my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Armina Sarkisian. I'm an outreach analyst with the California Department of Insurance. And for those of you that do not really know what the Department of Insurance does, we are a state agency and we regulate insurance. We are the largest consumer protection agency in the state of California, and we have a big responsibility of ensuring that the money that you pay into for your insurance, any type of insurance, when the time comes for you to claim benefits from that policy, then there is enough funds for you. We make sure that insurance companies do not raise rates excessively and without any valid reason. We also license those agents and brokers that you work with. We have sworn officers on our team who go out there and do insurance-related investigations. So if at any point you suspect insurance-related fraud, abuse, we are the agency to reach out to, not your local enforcement agency, because they are so inundated with other issues. We are really the ones doing those investigations and bringing you restitution. One thing that the Department of Insurance unfortunately cannot do is mandate that insurance companies sell insurance to a particular person or a particular community. And that is an issue we hear time and time again. I directly work with the Community Relations and Outreach branch of the Department of Insurance. We are tasked with educating our communities on various insurance-related issues, products. So we are really out there every week. We have I have colleagues all over the state of California, and we actually produce these types of CDI outreach team flyers every week. That's posted on our social media. So if you're interested in attending a different type of event in the community, please always find our outreach team activities for that coming week on our social media accounts. So, as I mentioned, we're out there, right? We're meeting with community members all over California. And since 2019, the department actually has prioritized meeting community members who have been impacted by wildfires. So we've actually been to every county in California, met directly one-on-one with folks who suffered during a wildfire emergency, and from those conversations, a number of new legislation was enacted. We've been able to expand evacuation expenses, so whatever you paid into, you've actually been able to receive expanded evacuation expenses paid to you. We've actually also been able to, since 2019, there is now legislation that provides a 1-year moratorium from non-renewals for communities that suffered wildfire emergencies. So for example, if the community of Malibu suffers a wildfire emergency and the governor declares it a wildfire emergency, then your insurance cannot non-renew, cancel your coverage for an entire year from that date. Also, we've been able to increase the number of days an insurance company gives you notice of non-renewal from 45 days to 75 days, allowing you an additional month to find an alternative policy. So from those conversations that I mentioned, meeting with community members where they are, and learning on what they need in order to make their insurance available and affordable, the Department of Insurance announced a new framework last year in January, along with all the state agencies that you see on your screen. We announced the Safer from Wildfires regulations. And what it is essentially, it is a list of actionable steps that residents can take to harden their homes, their individual structures, their surroundings, and then work together as a community to make their community safer from wildfires. And so Chief Durbin did an excellent job of going through what you can do step by step, but I'll just mention it first essentially starts with your individual structure. So giving you, again, actionable steps on what you can do, getting a Class A fire rated roof, a 5-foot ember resistant zone, double pane windows, closing those vents, enclosed eaves, clearing any brush, any dead vegetation from your roof. The second step is protecting your immediate surroundings. So removing any combustible sheds away from your structure, clearing any debris from under the decks. And then the last step, and we say this is probably the most crucial step really in fire protection, is working together as a community. It includes programs such as FireWise USA, and it also includes your local jurisdictions, your local cities, counties. You can be certified as fire risk reduction community. And so by doing all these steps, of course you are protecting your community from wildfires. You're making it safer from wildfires. But also, it comes along with discounts, insurance discounts that you can now receive for your actions. Last year, along with the Safer from Wildfires framework, we introduced new regulations that now lower costs of insurance and increase transparency. So because of our regulations, insurance companies will be mandated to take into account your home hardening actions and give you discounts. Those discounts really can range anywhere from 5 to 20%. It really depends on how you pay for your insurance and what insurance company you are with. Essentially, they are going to provide discounts if you've taken action to harden your home. We're also increasing transparency. You may not be aware, but your insurance company already assigns a wildfire risk score to your property. You just never know about it. But now, because of these regulations, you will receive a notice from your insurance company giving you a clear understanding of what your wildfire risk score, the reasons why that score is at that point. And lastly, we're giving you the right to appeal that risk score. So if you do not agree with the score that you received, if you've actually since then done the work to harden your property, then you should be able to appeal, and if it is true that you've hardened your home, then you should start receiving those discounts as well. We introduced these regulations last year. As of October 14th of last year, these regulations were approved by the Office of Administrative Law, but the insurance industry had 120 days from that date to submit their new rate filings to the Department of Insurance. And so that deadline was April 12th. So on April 12th, we received the new rate filings from all insurance companies. And as you can imagine, it is a lengthy process for us to go through each submission, make sure that it is in compliance. And so you should gradually, once the department gradually is able to approve the new rates, then you should start receiving those letters from your insurance companies with your risk score and with the discounts. And at any point, if you have any questions specifically related to your case, specifically related to your issue, Chief Durbin mentioned this hotline, but our hotline is 1-800-927-4357. And that number is answered Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. by insurance experts. And so they'll be able to give you basic information about insurance, or even look into your particular case, your particular issue, and even help you file a claim on the phone. Or you could also visit insurance.ca.gov. We actually have a number of great tools on our website. One tool I'd like to highlight is a home insurance finder tool on our website. Many people say, I can't find insurance, I need help. Well, that home insurance tool actually allows you to plug in your zip code to narrow the list down to companies writing in high fire areas. And it will bring you a list of all those insurance companies that are writing in your area. You may have never even heard of them, but they do insure your community. So I would encourage you to visit that website. And with that, thank you so much for your time, and I'll be happy to answer questions afterwards. Thank you.